Happy Halloween. So, our movie review for Monday, being that it's Halloween, is going to be a little film called Bloodshot. You'll find the link in the description. It's currently free on Tubi. And while I won't call it a good movie, it's definitely a good bad movie. Very low budget, surprisingly well written for something so low budget, but definitely enjoyable. In any case, I'm going to go turn on some lights so that I can actually talk. Or maybe not. But I do have another idea. There we go. That's a bit better. And yeah, I realize the quality of the camera work here is questionable at best. It's kind of funny how I've got that little artifact here by my eye. It's not actually a giant eyebrow, that's just, some effect from the camera work. Anyway, Bloodshot, 2 words. It's 2000, not 100% sure right now actually, but it'll be in the description, or on the thumbnail for that matter. But I watched the trailer some time ago and I thought, this would make a good movie for Halloween. And, sometimes you just have to enjoy something purely on the basis of this is going to be weird and different and odd and what the hell, why not? Now, it's a B movie, so don't get excited about it having great production value. The thumbnail image has better production value, if I'm honest. But, what's really good about it to me, I have a bad feeling I'm going to have to start this over, because that counter on the bottom of my timer doesn't look quite right. But on the offhand that I haven't boomered my way into having to make another video, let me tell you a little bit about this movie. Vampires, guns, cops, and one of the best jokes about Islamists I've seen in a long time. It's it's got its moments, I'll tell you that. You don't see, and I'm not going to spoil anything at all if I can help it. This movie would absolutely suffer if it was spoiled. But aside from one really glaring continuity error, it's not terrible. In fact, I kind of like to see what this director, Dietrich Johnston, could do with a slightly bigger budget. Not massive Hollywood scale budget, but, maybe double whatever his budget was. There's a lot of CGI effects, and they don't look great, but and the makeup is kind of trash, but oddly enough, there's a really good monster in this. And I'm not talking about the vampire, oddly enough, either. But they've got some pretty slick dialogue between the two main characters. They leave a few things questionable from the get-go. There's one kind of minor mystery that never gets answered and doesn't need to be. It's actually, the way they wrap that one up is actually so well done that, how to put it? When they give you the closure without giving you the closure, you look at it and you go, yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely acceptable. Who cares? Um, all around, this is the sort of movie that you'd put on with your friends and just giggle your ass off at how bad it is, but it's still a good time. Um, Lance Henriksen and Christopher Lambert actually show up in this. Lambert is really showing his age. I'm not even sure if Lambert's still alive now that I'm thinking about it. I think he is. I'm not sure about Lance Henriksen, though. I think he passed away. But neither one of them give the performance of their careers here, obviously. But it's got a bit of the 80s feel to it in terms of that sort of, not exactly buddy cop, but that sort of buddy action flick sort of feel. It's really a great movie. Now, when I say great, I don't mean by any means that it is technically great, but it is the sort of movie you watch and you go, this is enjoyable as fuck. It's really different. Different is a good word. If you were to ask me to rate this movie out of 10, all the technical issues would drop it by 3 points, so at the best it would be a 7. Then your acting knocks it down another couple, so it's probably a solid 5-6. Um, I've already mentioned the Islamists, so mentioning that there's a suicide bombing scene that will make you laugh uh, isn't so bad. It's not much of a spoiler. Um, and in fact, it kind of makes you go, wait a second, that can't work. And then they kind of pull it back, and they do a really good job pulling it back. You can tell the guy who acts as the vampire in this is having a blast, which is really a testament not just to his acting ability, but to the writing. It's a little cliche in spots, but there are moments in this movie where you will be absolutely struck by how efficient the writing is. How very it's actually, come to think of it, I'm going to knock another point off for the pacing. This movie could have been 15 minutes shorter and still been just as good. There's a couple of scenes that really don't make sense, that really make you go, wait, what the hell was that guy supposed to be there for? But honestly, look past the really, really terrible flaws, and if you get past the first 15, 20 minutes, this movie is absolutely worth the time investment. I absolutely swear to you it is. And I mean, it's free. What do you want, right? Plus, it's a massively B movie. It is directly in that range. Uh, I'm laughing at it because, I mean, it's a comedy action horror. It's if you're a fan of the Dresden Files, I'll say this: if you're a fan of the Dresden Files, you will like this movie. You definitely won't you won't consider it a sort of a work of art or anything. But you know, it would make a great movie to adapt to a TV show, or it would have, I think, if some of the events that occur hadn't occurred, especially some of the end events. Again, trying not to spoil it, but the actor who plays the vampire in this, And I mean, I'm not spoiling anything by telling you there's a vampire in it. There's a fucking vampire on the thumbnail. But the guy who acts as the vampire in this clearly did have a blast, and he's actually a really good actor if he's got a decent script. And this is a decent script. If the screenwriter, and I'm not sure who the screenwriter was at this point, if he's still working, I mean, he absolutely deserves a job with a big budget. Excuse me. He absolutely deserves a job with a big budget studio. I hope he doesn't end up in Hollywood, because some of the humor he uses will not fly there. And the sort of talent that he displays deserves to be expressed in its fullest. I mean, some of the dialogue, some of the back and forth between the main characters, it's so good, and it's not an original concept in spots, but it's definitely a well-interpreted form of the genre. Like, if you're into vampire movies, this is one that you should absolutely put next to other movies like Blood Ties, or Innocent Blood, or... I'm trying to think of other kind of B-range vampire movies that this reminds me of. Those two especially, Innocent Blood and Blood Ties. If you haven't seen either of those movies, they're worth watching as well. Especially if you're into the B-movie stuff. There's a little bit of gore. The makeup effects for the gore are actually really well done. It's quite believable. There's a little bit of weird lingeringness to some of the makeup effects that make you go, but I think that's really more explained by the low budget, where they kind of had to shoot everything as quickly as they could. But this really strikes me as the sort of production where everybody, for the most part, knew each other. And I mean, I really want to go and try and find some interviews and stuff like that with the cast and crew. I want to know how Lance and Christopher, for example, got brought on. If they were just paid to do the acting. Which, possibly, because they don't... Lance, more than Christopher, seems invested in the film. But, I mean, even... there is some... I watched this with closed captions. I would recommend you watch it with closed captions as well. But there are some really, really good segments in this movie. Scenes where you'll laugh and you'll go, oh gods, that's so cringe. But then there's other moments where you go, that's so fitting. It suits the story and the setting. And and there are other moments where you go, why the hell is this still happening? But yeah, one thing I did like about the script and about the story, there are moments where they absolutely refuse to explain things to the audience, more than just expecting you to have the rational, deductive ability to go, oh, that's what's going on, and this is why. Perfect. There is one moment where you're kind of wondering, why the hell is that in the middle of a city? But I'm willing to make allowances for that, because there are so many good moments in this film. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this might be a Tubi original. If it is, then Tubi really does know their shit when it comes to filmmaking and picking good crews. If it's not, the guys who are on this crew really, really deserve kudos. The kind of work they put in, it's really indicative of someone who not just knows the movie industry, but loves the movie industry. They made this movie because they love making movies. Gods. Just to give you a closing thought. uh, actually, there are moments where they clearly don't understand the Islamist culture, and moments where they clearly disrespect the Islamist culture, and that's fine. Islamists are cunts anyway. But the few moments where they show a little bit of understanding of Arabic mythology and Islamic doctrine and dogma, it's so good because it really doesn't matter. But there are so many little mysteries and things like that that just don't get overly explained. They're treating their audience like they're smart enough to be able to deduce certain things and not concerning themselves with other things. So, I mean, if you ask me, do I recommend this movie? I absolutely recommend this movie. This is a great, good time on Halloween sort of movie. If you've got kids, put the kids to bed. Unless they're, old enough that they probably wouldn't be hanging out with mom and dad anyway, so it doesn't matter. But sort the kids' candy, get the kids to bed once the sugar rush wears off, and then poke this movie on, because you will enjoy it. It's very much a guy movie, but I think a traditional woman would probably enjoy parts of it. Probably not many. Honestly, this is definitely a movie made for guys. But it's absolutely worth watching if you just need something to watch. So yeah, that's my review for Bloodshot. Yeah, so, I'm sorry. I gotta go. Go watch the movie, you'll understand.